one. This is Jonathan Mickles with the Strategic Multifamily Investing Podcast, and I have with me Mr. Tony Martinez. What's going on, Tony?
Oh, Jonathan, thank you so much. It is so good to see you, my friend. We were just chatting before we went live on how many years it's been. So it's been a good, 10 years since we connected. But that's just a blessing that after all this time, you're still doing what you love. I'm still doing what I love. And together we can make a contribution, right?
Absolutely, my friend. Absolutely. Well, listen, I want you to give a brief background of what you do. And I see a logo behind you called the CDPE. If you could tell us a little bit about that as well, and then we'll just jump right into conversation.
You want to start like from the first grade, or you want me to move it up a little bit?
Right. You were born at an early age.
Yeah. You know? I've seen that happen, man, too often. Look, here's the long and the short of it. I am an active real estate broker. I am based in the great state of Florida. I got a few offices. I got a couple hundred agents. My wife and I run the show. We're blessed every day to work with some really great people. We're in the trenches every day, just like you, going through the struggles and the hardships and everything else. And but at the same time, there's an alter ego. And you met me at a time in my life when I was teaching that certification behind my back there, the Certified Distressed Property Expert, which at the time was the foremost short sale training ever created. And I had the privilege of working for this organization for several years, traveled across the country, taught over 10,000 agents how to do short sales. And, then the market started correcting itself. I got burned out with the traveling, was given an offer to become a broker owner and everything else. So we kind of went a different direction, but life has a way of going full circle. So now the CDP is back.
It is back, my friend. And we'll talk a little bit more about why it is back. And I want to, before we go in, say thank you to Tony. Tony, I'm going to do my fanboy thing here.
I'm going to blush.
I am, because people, if you don't know how really impactful this gentleman has been, not just in my life, but just to thousands of others. You've heard he's taught at least 10,000 other realtors how to help people exit their homes gracefully, through a short sale or foreclosure. And I went down to Florida. I think we were in the Miami class. And you were my teacher for the Miami class of the Certified Distressed Property Expert. That's what CDP stands for anybody else who didn't hear that. If you're in Maryland, the E stands for not
education.
Expert. There you go.
Let's get that in there.
There's a whole law around that. So
yeah, no kidding.
Yep. And so at the end of the class, Tony is truly a master, and he goes on, he says, now, if you think you can do what I do, we're looking for some people to teach this thing called the CIAS, the Certified Investor Agent Specialist Designation. And I was like, well, first of all, I got to get the designation. And then, and so he said, well, go ahead and sign up potentially. And I looked at it and I was like, okay, they're looking for somebody to travel, great. They'll bring me down. It's like, no, you pay your own way. And so I did. I paid my own way down there. And I was selected as one of less than a handful to teach that certification, for Charfen, the Charfen Institute. I was happy to have Tony and one or two others to help mentor me to become a teacher for that CIAS, and it was an experience.
It was an amazing class. That's another one that's not being serviced right now that people have been asking me. So there's something going on in the back of my mind saying, you never know. But yes, you impressed me. You obviously made the grade because a whole lot of folks who wanted, and I can't tell you over my many years how many people aspired to be a trainer. And just because you're a great practitioner doesn't mean you can make the transition to a great educator, right? Because it's that edutainment component. It's not just the knowledge, it's the engagement, that kind of thing. And you had it, you have it. You have all of the above. So I'm glad to see that you still in that space, because now we have all this technology around us that allows us to reach so many more people.
Yes.
But listen, what you think of me, whether well-deserved or not, I'm honored that you feel that way. And it just goes to show that you must be doing something right. If people of your caliber can think that highly of you, then it's all good, man. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Let's stop gushing over each other. Let's give them some content, man.
So as of December 31st of 2020, I saw the messages go out that, the CDPE was actually being retired. And I was kind of feeling like, this is not, but yeah, the market has corrected itself. And then I get, a couple months ago, I get an email saying, hey, CDPE has been revived and Tony is taking it over. And I said, what's going on? So, okay, talk to me about why revive the CDPE.
Yeah, so what happened, huh?
Yeah.
How did that all go down?
Yeah.
So, and you know what? I still don't have the exact date that the Charfen, and for folks that don't know, the CDPE, the CIS was created by an amazing couple, Alex and Cadey Charfen.
Absolutely.
And I owe so much to them, and so many people owe so much to them for their contribution. And you know what? Life went on. Short sales weren't front page news anymore. Alex, just being an amazing trainer and businessman, went on into doing other things, and they stopped supporting that platform. So basically, you went to the website, you got there, and there was no CDP anymore. And I've always stopped. I've never stopped training. Right. It's in my blood, right? That's what I do. Right. And the short sales is a particular passion of mine. So I've modified it, made changes and everything else. But what really triggered my re-entry was COVID. Because March, when they announced the first lockdowns, my friend, I said, my crystal ball is usually very, very cluttered and cloudy. It was crystal. I said, wait a minute, let me see if I get this straight. Millions of people are going to be out of work. Yeah. You're telling people that they don't have to make their mortgage payments anymore. Right? For 6 months, and then you can extend it for another 6 months. Because that's why if it was a federally chartered loan, like a GSE, like Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA, those sorts, hey, listen, 6 months, no penalty. You want to lock it in for another 6 months, go ahead. And you know what? That's still continuing. Yeah. And I'm thinking, people not working, people kind of been given the incentive to not make their payments. It's not like they won't owe that money at some point. And so you start putting it all together. I says, look, I think there's going to be a market to do short sales. Now, I think we got to come full circle and talk about what a short sale is. There you go. Because there may be some listeners that are like, okay, they keep mentioning this short sale, what is that, right? And so in traditional real estate, you buy a house for this and you sell it for this and you keep the spread. And that's how it should be. Right. But then back in 2008, the whole world got upside down, right? And people owed this much on their houses and could only sell it for this much. They were underwater. And the only way they could get out of that debt, assuming that they had a hardship and could verify it, was to plead with the bank, please take less money than what is owed. And that's where the whole short sale process came in. So I started thinking, hey, wait a minute, we're going to see another tsunami of foreclosures. Now, it doesn't equate to a whole lot of them being underwater because there is more equity in the market right now.
There you go. That's good. Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, and we got to talk about this because I started getting like criticism. It was like, no, there's everyone's got equity. I go, and I really want to come back to that in a little bit. So please remind me. But I said, look, it's not going to be as bad as 2008. But then I started thinking, if a tsunami is not 100-foot tall, but it's only 25-foot tall, can it still cause some damage? Yeah. And that's what we're looking at. I'm seeing a tsunami of foreclosures that are building. And you know what's holding it back? The only thing holding back this wave right now is the government. Okay. The CDC saying, thou shalt not evict or foreclose. Right. And the moratoriums that have been in place and extended. Well, you know what? They're supposed to end of July. All bets are on this is it. No more extensions. So I ramped up my short sale training, and I created a program called Short Sales Mastery. And I started getting some people taking it. I'm doing it via Zoom so I can reach the masses. And people kept asking, is this a designation? Is this a certification? And I
Wow.
go, well, someday I want it to be. And you know what, man? Every now and then I get this God thought, and I'm going, wait a minute, why would I start fresh if there's a designation there that was the designation of designations
Yep.
sitting there
Yep.
on the sideline? So I reached out to the Charfens and say, I got a crazy idea, sell it to me.
Yep. There you go.
And look, the rest is history. I mean, we knew of each other, of course. I mean, we've had a long-term relationship. They know of my passion, my expertise in the matter. And they really wanted it to go to someone that was going to continue their legacy.
Yep.
And first and foremost, what the CDP always stood for
Mhm.
is help the distressed homeowner avoid the foreclosure.
There you go.
Foreclosure comes with devastating long-term consequences.
Let's talk about some of those. What are some of the long-term devastating consequences that some people,
Foreclosure?
it's just going to be now and maybe in the next 7 years or whatever, but
Yeah. Well, it starts with, and it's one of the things I always teach my agents. You got to have this in your back. There's got to be like arrows in your quiver, right? Because when someone's losing their home, they get to different emotional stages, and one of them is apathy, or they've surrendered, they've given up, and they're like, you got to step in there and say, hold on a second. You understand this? There's the possibility, for example, of a deficiency judgment, because many states allow the banks to sue them after the fact in civil court to recover what was lost.
yeah. So
Yeah,
that means that people had money in their 401ks, they had money in their IRAs, they had money in their savings accounts. They would potentially lose those things. Yes.
let's talk about that. So let's say what happens is when you do a foreclosure
Mhm.
and you go through the whole process, nobody is advocating on your behalf. No one's making the argument that you're in a hardship position, that you're insolvent, that this and that. You just lose the home. Well, you know what? What if you do have money? What if you do have assets? Now, the good news about IRAs and 401ks, they can't seize that,
Got it.
but they know you have it. And that could enter into their decision making about pursuing a judgment against you later. And if the bank lost 300 grand on the deal plus expenses, they could sue you for that. Then there's a stigma
Right.
of maybe losing your job or never being able to get the job that you want. Because many jobs that involve handling other people's money,
Yes. Right.
they don't want someone that in their minds show the lack of being able to handle their own money. Security clearances. Think
That's
about how many jobs you have to have a security clearance. That can be jeopardized with a foreclosure.
We'll talk about even, getting a new home. You get this home, you get out of this home, you have that extra money, you're going to possibly go and borrow in your, 401k or, whatever in order to get the new home. What are some of the challenges that a
Yeah.
foreclosure presents in getting a new home?
Well, what's happening is foreclosure is something that definitely shows up on your credit report, and it stays on your credit report for up to 7 years. But there is no category on a credit report called a short sale. So right from the get-go, it doesn't hurt you to the same degree. And then you look at the traditional loans, the traditional conventional FHA, there's always a longer waiting period that you have to wait before you can qualify for one of those loans, as opposed to with a short sale. You could potentially qualify for a new loan after a short sale in as little 2 or 3 years. But for after a foreclosure, you might have to wait 5 to 7 years.
Mm.
And you know how I like to tell people? I like to tell people to get them out of that feeling of today, life, I hate life, I don't care. I said, look, you're looking through the lens of today,
Yeah.
but look in the future. Would you someday like to be a homeowner again in the future? And 99% are going to say, of course I would. Okay, great. Now stick with me. Would you like to live with the restriction of not being able to buy again for 5 to 7 years, or have the option to buy again in as little as 2 to 3 years. Which would you prefer? Who do you think? What do you think they're going to say?
Right. Of course, it's 2 to 3 years. They can get
And
this.
then you should pursue a short sale.
Yeah. In addition to that, on the loan application, at the end of the loan application, the 1003, that's what they call it, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are a couple of questions there. Have you ever had a home foreclosed upon? Have you ever
deed in lieu?
Or deed in lieu? That's exactly right. So you got two things there that, should you go through a deed in lieu or foreclosure, you're always going to have to answer yes, and that's going to be taken into account in terms of your ability to be able to get approved, or maybe rates or something in the
absolutely.
future.
You always have to disclose that.
Always.
And something that did change now with the new 1003.
Okay.
The new 1003 also has the question if you ever had a short sale.
Oh.
So back in the day, that was a big thing that we would say, because I knew exactly where you were going with this, right? But we always have to keep an eye out for changes, right? Who knows? Maybe in the future someday, credit reports will have a category called short sales. We don't know. Right now, they don't. Back then, 1003s didn't ask the question about short sales, but now the 1003 does. Okay. And so what happens is, now at the end, asking the question yes or no, the impact is still lessened. It's still far lessened because it's not on your credit report. And ultimately, that's what's going to hit you, is the credit report. So we can make a coherent argument that foreclosure bad, short sale better. It's the lesser of two evils. It's not like you get out scot-free with a short sale, but I like to call short sale a dignified exit to a very difficult situation. Got it.
So now you talked about earlier about the tsunami being 100 feet tall versus 25 feet tall.
Yeah.
Do you have some statistics about, how things are different now than they were, then?
I think things are very different now. First of all, we don't have anywhere near the number of people in distress that we had in 2008, 2009. Okay. The thing that's still different is we just don't know to what extent is COVID truly over. As of the taping of this, it's not. We got the Delta variant now. There's also talk about maybe some restrictions going into play. So we're not out of the woods yet. We could say we're already 100% in recovery mode. You mentioned earlier, there's almost 2 million mortgages that are still in forbearance. And when you start looking at numbers, the numbers are also going to be state specific, right? There are areas that are harder hit than others. But while the delinquency rate is gradually going down, the serious delinquency rate is actually up against last year. So the best places, the best places like the Mortgage Brokers Association, CoreLogic, they put out some great stats, but it's still significant, right? And what we need to talk about is what's going to happen to all these people that are in forbearance, all right? And then let's also talk about what's going to happen when the moratoriums end. So here I am in the great state of Florida. They're due to end, July 31st. I have a great friend that is a very well-known foreclosure defense attorney, and his hands are in it. And he says the lenders have just been stacking up the foreclosure filings, just waiting for the moratoriums to lift.
Wow.
Because why file if they really couldn't go all the way, right? So they're just waiting for it to be lifted and then just inundate the court system with the filings.
Is it because they're wanting to file because they can go all the way because there's equity? And we talked about that a little bit earlier before. Is there a lot of equity in these things?
The potential for equity is there, but the bottom line is whether there's equity or not, they're obliged contractually to foreclose. I mean, the contract that they have, the servicers, they have to foreclose. That's just the way the legal system works. You're not making your payments. You're this many months into it. We need to foreclose. Now, the issue of equity is one that I get into discussions about, because there are people that are adamant that people are sitting on all this cash. And look, yes, there's been significant appreciation in the past several years. But that's assuming that people never tapped that money prior to this happening. Jonathan, you and I have been around the block a few times. You go back to 2006. What led to so many people being underwater is we were getting refinancing of 105%, right?
Absolutely.
So, and people have known that they've been sitting on money for a while. And you know what happens when people are sitting on money? It starts to burn a hole in their pocket. And they're looking at, well, listen, well, we could buy this and we could buy that and we can go on that trip and we can get this plastic surgery and we can get that car and we can get this. So A, have they already been tapping that equity already?
Got it.
B, here's this other scenario. What about the people that recently bought? Someone that's been in their home 6, 7, 8 years. Maybe they are sitting on a ton of money, but maybe somebody that bought in the last year, 2, what if they bought FHA? So for those that don't know, FHA, you only buy with 3.5% down, right?
Exactly.
So you're already starting with very little equity, right? Yep. And let's say you started with this little equity and it got to this much. Well, then you missed 18 payments. How many payments does it take, right? And so I think people are going to be shocked when they get their payoffs as to how much they owe on these properties.
And the interest.
Because there's interest and penalties and all that can happen. Now, the ones that were in the true forbearance that weren't allowed to put the interest and the penalties and all that, but the money is still owed. What we don't know, and the government's attempting all of these options, the government will dictate, servicers, you have to do all these things. You have to offer all these options. The question is, will the servicers even have the personnel to even offer these things? So here's what I want everyone to be very clear. I hope and pray that it's never as bad as it was in 2008.
There you go.
We are not people that are sharks swimming around a pool of blood. Our first goal is always, what can we do to help people stay in their homes?
There you go.
Every CDPE is taught, always explore every option available to keep them in their home.
Yep.
When every single one of those has been exhausted and they have to leave, it is far better to leave with some dignity and fewer consequences than it is to have the home taken away, being shown the door by the sheriff, and then have issues later on in the future.
So then here's my question. You talked earlier about the difference between delinquency and serious delinquency.
Yeah.
How many days delinquent do you define?
120 days. Yeah. And looking at CoreLogic's numbers that came out for April 2021 is 2.8. April 2020 was 0.9. So the 120-day late is significantly higher. But you know why? Because people have been extending the forbearance, right? And here's my thinking: when the time comes to work out a mod for someone, right? Part of being able to qualify for a modification is being able to prove that you can make your payments going forward. Now, they can do all kind of clever things with the money that's owed. They can put it on the back of the loan. They can do whatever. But you can't qualify for an MOD if you don't have a JOB.
There you go.
Yeah. So that's when the rubber hits the road. We're going to find out who is really going to qualify. So the tsunami is not going to hit overnight. Even though foreclosures are happening, they're happening now. The foreclosure protection didn't extend to every scenario. It was scenarios that involved COVID-related hardships. And different states and different counties have been enacting their own policies. California is extending theirs to September 30th.
Wow.
So it's going to be state specific and area specific. And the real estate professionals in those areas are going to have to do their due diligence to find out, okay, what's happening in my area? Let me talk to a foreclosure defense attorney. Let me talk to a title company, a closing agent, to find out what's going on. But here's all I'm trying to say. If the typical real estate professional will just engage the distressed seller, they engage them. Because here's what's going to happen. If they can't stay in the home and they have no choice but to sell, they'll have equity, and that's a regular sale. That's a regular sale.
And you can make money. So how do they find these people in their area? I mean, they just go to their phone.
Great question. No, what happens is, unfortunately, it's public record at that point, right? Let's say, God forbid, you and I fall 1 or 2 months behind on our payments. It's nobody's business. But once foreclosure action has been initiated,
There
it
you go.
becomes public records. So there's different places, everything from through the MLS, they can search, through the courthouse sites, they can search, and services such as like LandVoice. LandVoice.com is a service agents can subscribe to. And LandVoice gives them a list every morning of for sale by owners, expired listings, but also ones that are in distress. So
Yep.
they have to actively go after these individuals and say, listen, if you could sell your home right now, would you?
Yeah.
Or do you know you're in a situation that you're, you know, of course they know that they're in the situation they're in, but do you know how serious the situation is?
Right.
And all I'm trying to do is teach enough agents that if the situation is that they are underwater, that agent will know what to do.
There you go.
That agent will just flip a switch and say, no problem. I'm skilled and trained in this area. Let's discuss what a short sale is, and let's discuss what a short sale isn't.
Right. And here's the thing with those agents who may be listening, you know, that's two transactions, that's two sides, right? You
Potentially
two sides, potentially three sides, because you might be able to sell the home, right, and then represent the buyer,
rent something else,
and then find them something else. Absolutely. So that's
absolutely. Yeah, there's always some intricacies that are involved anytime you're representing the seller and the buyer. I always tell people, talk to your broker,
exactly.
talk to you know, any attorneys you need to. But what I also want to make sure, because your audience may be a combination of investors, and what that's going to mean is there's going to be more inventory available to you.
Yep.
And unlike the REOs, the real estate owned properties and all that, short sales are typically in much better condition.
Yes.
If you as an investor can develop a really good relationship with realtors that are going to engage in short sales, they might come to you first, because often when we're running out of time and the sale date is knocking on our door, pardon the pun, and we need to get a contract immediately, we're going to turn to our investor base to give us a contract, so that at least we can go before the judge. We, meaning the attorney or the seller, can go before the judge and say, listen, give me some time. We got a contract. We just want to see it through. So investors should definitely be interested in this, right? The typical real estate population, well, this is a niche, all right? This is a niche that most agents are going to ignore. They're going to actually avoid it like the plague, because
they were burned by the amount of time it took to do a short sale before, and so
misinformed. You know, this, yeah, I got to tell you, there's a whole new generation of agents right now that have never been through a bad market like that, so they don't know. Now, because I'm interacting with CDPs all day long, and I'm having what I call the OGs, the original gangsters that are coming back and renewing their membership and re-engaging. They were there. They were there. And then you got this whole new crew that's signing up, and they don't know what this market is. So it's kind of fun teaching both, you know, to engage. But yeah, we're going to need a movement. We're going to need a CDPE nation. We may not ever be 58,000 agents strong like it was back in the day, but we do need a significant number in different areas of the country that are going to be able to help the people that are going through this.
Do you have intel on the parts? Because you mentioned that, you know, different states are going to be affected in different ways, because, you know, there may be some more states or some states that are more delinquent than others. What are some of those states? Do you have that?
I don't have it as readily as I used to. One of my primary sources, I'm not going to mention any names, but I believe the company was acquired, and they used to have this amazing site. You go to it, it was all right there.
Yeah.
I think you know the one I'm talking about, and it ain't right there anymore. So you just have to kind of Google it and say which states have the leading ones. But the South is hard hit. Florida has always been in the top 5 before COVID and everything else. But it's amazing how many states, like I have agents from Hawaii taking the course because they've been a hit. I have so many from California that are hard hit. About New York, New Jersey, terrible, Louisiana. All these states have just been really hard hit.
So then let me ask this question in terms of, and I think I know the answer already, but what about investors who have, say, single family investment properties that are potentially in this situation where, they may be underwater as well? Can
Yeah,
you use a CDPE, or do you have any
yeah.
intel about that?
Yeah, see, you bring up a brilliant point. The people that no one seems to talk about that's been hurt by the moratoriums are the landlords. All right. So the landlords, I don't know, is there's belief that every landlord is this conglomerate with hundreds of millions of dollars in their bank account. No, the typical landlord is just an average person, the average Joe that maybe has one or two properties and they were counting on this passive income to be their retirement money.
Yeah.
And they may not have received a rent payment in 18 months. Now, when the moratorium is lifted and they either will be able to evict that person and everything else, they may look at the situation and say, I'm sick of it. I never want to rent again. And they're going to want to sell. And again, they'll either have equity and it'll be a regular sale, or they won't and it will be a short sale.
There you
And
go.
here's the thing that people need to keep in mind. You just don't get approved for a short sale because your property is underwater. I mean, that's where it starts. But the banks look for three key things. They want do you have a verifiable hardship?
Mhm.
What's a hardship? A hardship is a material change that has occurred from the time you took out the mortgage until today that now prevents you from paying it back. And the most typical hardships are everything from reduction in income, loss of work, business failure, increase in expenses, reduction in rent payments, all these things. So it must be documentable and it must be verifiable, all that good stuff. The second thing they look for is what we call monthly income shortfall.
Mhm.
In other words, do you have more month at the end of the money? Right now it's the 21st of July. There are people in this country that already ran out of money, but we still got month left, you
Yeah.
know? And
Yep.
so if you could show that just the money doesn't match the expenses, that works in your favor. And
Mhm.
last but not least, insolvency, fancy word for broke. In other words, do you not have sufficient assets that can be used to pay down or pay off this mortgage? And what I teach my agents is you always want to start the conversation off by saying, look, I'm going to ask you some very delicate questions. My goal here is not to judge you in any way, shape, or form. I'm just here to see if I can be of service to you. This is going to be confidential, but ultimately, I'm seeking to find out if you are an ideal candidate for a short sale. And the ideal candidate will be hardship, monthly income shortfall, and they'll be insolvent. And they may be 2 out of 3. It can vary, but a trained agent will look at their situation and say, I think I can help you. And here's where we start.
Excellent. So here's my question again. I think you mentioned it already. When are the moratoriums scheduled to end
And
now? Yeah.
yeah, July 31st is the broad strokes, July 31st. Now, we've been surprised before, but even now, when you read the articles, it's even said there, and they've already stated there will not be any more extensions.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, a state can do what it wants, and California has stated that they're going to go through September 30th. So that again, that's where it's going to be state specific. I think the timing of me buying the CDP is pretty good. I was really motivated to act quickly to get the classes relaunched, because what happened is we had this amazing course, right? And back in the day, it was taught live over 2 days.
Oh yeah.
And the information, a lot of that is dated. The information doesn't really apply to today's market. So the first thing I had to do was I had to trim it down. I had to trim it down into a format that can be done in a day. And one of the most significant changes that I've made is that back then,
Mhm.
agents had to be trained to how to do the negotiations.
Right.
See, because the fun begins when you take this contract and then we got to communicate with the bank
Right.
and get them to agree to lose a significant sum.
Right.
And back then, nobody knew what they were doing. So the CDP stood up and said, you guys have to do this. Well, now I'm of the belief that there are significant liability. Being a broker, I learned firsthand the liability I'm exposed to every single day.
Right.
And I tell people all the time, none of my agents are allowed to negotiate their own.
Okay.
Unless they come from the old school, they can show me I've done this. I was a CDPE. I've negotiated 100. Then we'll talk.
Right.
Leave it to the pros. So what I teach primarily is understand and identify who is in need of help, and then follow the steps to engage them, convince them. Sometimes it takes convincing. People are in this mindset of defeat and despair.
Right.
And we have to cut through all that.
Yep.
And get them to a point of acceptance and action.
Right.
Right. So short sales are really 80-85% real estate 101. There's a seller, there's a buyer, the contracts, but that 15 to 20% difference can be all the difference in the world. And that's what they have to be trained on how to do properly.
So then who is negotiating those short sales if they are unable to negotiate them themselves?
Well, they have several options. Number one is attorneys have always done it. Now, not everyone, just because someone has an attorney doesn't mean they're good at what they do. Okay. Right. So you want to interview with different attorneys. If you're an attorney state or a title company state, title companies will either do their own internal negotiations or outsource. Attorneys do the same thing. They either negotiate themselves or maybe they outsource. And then there are independent negotiators that are not affiliated with any given company, but you can engage their services. And once they're successful, I mean, if you engage a negotiator, you also have your title company, your attorney, to do all the settlement paperwork and everything else. But they're the ones that are tasked. And you know what? People don't realize how important relationships are. Because the reality is that the ones that do it for a living, they know the names of the people sitting
exactly
in the loss mitigation desk on the other side.
That's correct. There is. Yeah, go ahead.
You know how it is.
Yeah, there's one right now I want to call out, and I can't call her name right now, but she's in Maryland, and she is in Prince George's County, Maryland, and I'm going to find her name in a couple of seconds, but she's awesome, and she knows the people, and she's done several hundreds over the years. I'm pretty sure she probably is in the thousands, she and her team, and they are a group that negotiates, and a lot of times agents work with her, especially if you're in Maryland, because there are a lot of restrictions there. Yeah.
And I want to talk to that person. I would love to be part of our network, because I that's what I'm doing. The agents are saying, well, are you saying I can't? I go, I'm not saying you can't. This is your decision. As long as you talk to your broker and your broker's comfortable with it and everything else. But I'm saying is, why do you want to? Because if you've never done it before, then your first one is going to be an experiment. But you're experimenting with somebody's real life scenario.
Exactly.
That's not right. I mean, come on, a surgeon is trained on cadavers for a reason. You know what I'm saying? They don't walk into an operating room. Yeah. You never done this before? Okay, you're next. Go ahead. You know, what? Get me out of here. And that's the part that concerns me.
Yeah. So I'll definitely connect you to them. But then how can homeowners, because this is great information, great refresher, good to hear the updates. But as a homeowner, I'm listening to this, so I know somebody who's in this situation. How do they engage the CDPE? How do they engage you?
Thank you, because I'm doing something very different from how it was back then. Mm-hmm. In the old days, you could go to the CDPE website, and there was a roster of CDPs all across the country there. And a lot of the agents that are coming back saying, are you going to do that again? I go, not the same.
Interesting.
This is going to be a shorter, vetted list.
Good.
And it's going to be a referral network. Okay. You know, so in other words, I'm going to get very aggressive in reaching out to the consumers in the most hard-hit markets. And I want them, hopefully, to reach out to me via CDPE.com.
Yep.
And I will connect them with a trained specialist in their area.
Do you have an email address that they can, or a phone number that they can reach out to?
Yeah, right now I'm holding off on the phone number. I'm doing all the communications via email.
Sure.
But what they can do is Tony, Tony, at CDPE.com. Doesn't get any easier than that. Tony at CDPE.com. And then my job, and I got several hats I'm wearing right now.
Sure.
The next phase is to put this referral network together as I get more and more CDPEs renewing.
Mm-hmm.
Because what's happening right now is I have a mix of all original CDPEs that are reinstating,
Right.
and then we have a whole new generation that's taking. So within the next several weeks, I'll have critical mass
Yeah.
spread out around the country. And then we're going to put our criteria in place and say, if you've done X number of transactions, short sales, in X number of years, then you can be in this short list to receive referrals. And while there's never any guarantees, you know that,
Yeah.
and we can never say that this person is foolproof or perfect or whatever.
Exactly.
We just want to go to a higher level of scrutiny.
Yeah.
To at least put people on that short list that have had experience in this arena.
Yeah. And I think another person we can give a shout out to, I'm not sure what he'll say, but Mr. Aaron Rice.
Oh, the man. Yeah, he is. Aaron's amazing. So he's in your, because you keep mentioning Maryland. So I'm thinking that you're still there, right?
Well, I still have roots and base there, but I keep in contact with Aaron. Aaron Rice was also a master trainer for the CDPE.
Oh yeah.
And is amazing at the work that he does. So
Yeah.
just shouting out,
Oh yeah. He was one of the first people I reached out to, because one of the things I said from the very beginning is I reached out to all the instructors saying, I'm putting the band back together. Because I won't be able to do right now. I'm doing it all, man. I'm doing everything right now. In addition to running my offices and my title company and my mortgage company and everything else, I want my fingers in every part of it before I start opening it up. But the next goal for us is to start doing the live courses again.
Okay.
And as states start to feel comfortable with allowing live audiences in, I think by the fourth quarter this year, we should be holding some live courses across the country.
Excellent.
And then once I get this dialed in exactly like I want it, I'm going to record an entire series. Good. Because I should back up a little bit. The way I teach it right now is I teach it via Zoom, 5 sessions of 2 hours each.
Got it.
So I like teaching it in layers, in bite size, because before it was like taking a sip of water from a fire hydrant, yes. It just, right? And you were like, I don't know what. Now I teach it, like the first session, I go, okay, here's what foreclosure is. Here's what the process is. Here's what you can expect. Here are the consequences. Here's what to look for. And then section 2 was, okay, here's what the seller qualifications are. Here's what you need to do to build your short sale team. Here's what negotiating is like. Here's how the commissions work. Now, week 3, I actually teach them how to interview the seller. And I teach them how to take the listing and how to do the presentation. So I'm stacking one session on top of the other. And the beautiful part about Zoom is every session is recorded.
Yeah.
So even if they miss it, they get the recording that evening and they can play it over and over again until it really sinks in.
And that's an awesome thing, man. So then how do realtors get in contact with you?
If they're CDPE.com. Okay. All the information's there. The first thing is, or they can write to me directly, Tony@CDPE.com. What I'm trying to do is ascertain, were you a CDPE? I have a list, a spreadsheet. If they were a CDPE, the first thing I want them to do is renew. I'm extending the old renewal price of $99 a year. Oh, wow. I didn't raise or anything, so they can reinstate themselves for $99 a year. And that right away allows them to use the logo, the initials. They have access to the member dashboard where they have our forms, our disclosures, and everything else. Now, the course itself, if you were taking the course brand new, right out of the gate right now, is $399. Got it. And I feel it's a fair price with everything that we give.
Oh, that's fair. Yeah, because I remember what the original prices were.
Yeah, it was more before, and the way I look at it is that we, in some respects, this is better, because before, if you sat there a day or two, because of a 2-day class, and you were a little lost and confused at the end, it didn't get any better. because you already took the course. If you wanted to take it again, you got to pay again, right? Now with the Zoom, you got this recording. You can play it back and play it back and play it back until it really, really sinks in. And so, but here's what I'm doing for my CDPEs. If they renew at the 99, I give them the course for 150.
Oh,
so their total investment's 249, and a lot of them are taking me up on that.
Oh yeah. Well, you'll be hearing from me soon.
Thanks for the warning.
Yeah, just let you know, you'll be hearing from me soon.
Well, especially when you're ready to teach again, my friend, in this area. You know, I'm already thinking that maybe we're gonna have another conversation.
We should. I thoroughly enjoyed teaching, and would love to get back into doing that again. So we've got homeowners. If you're interested, Tony at CDPE.com. And realtors, you can go to the website and sign up directly. If you are already a certified or a CDPE in the past, old school, again, it's $99 a year for the membership, and then you get the course for an even $149. So total
150. I got it just 150, which is So I mean, and right now the series that I'm in is sold out, but the next series is starting up April 11th, and so that's what I'm doing right now. And then once I get more trainers like yourself,
it'll be next year, April 11th of next year.
I'm sorry, did I say April? I meant August.
August 11th. Okay.
Yeah. Great. Yeah. So I'm kind of like, as one is ending, another one is starting. So now I'm gearing it. I'm sending everybody to that one. And then, of course, we should be firing on all cylinders by the end of the year with other trainers and everything in place so that we can get to greater and greater numbers. Because if things happen like I think they will with the moratoriums ending, it's not like going to be an immediate thing, because foreclosure is a process. It's a process that can last several months. But what we'll see is 2022 could be a pretty devastating year for a lot of people. And that's why we need to get the movement going now and the CDPE Nation going now,
right? So
that they're ready. You know, back then, you know, that a lot of people, they came and took the course out of desperation.
Yeah.
Or they had no choice.
Yeah,
they were caught completely off guard. The market changed virtually overnight on them, and they're like, we don't know what to do. And they went to the course. But right now, I got the people that are on the front end of the curve. And what's going to happen is there's going to be a wave of agents that'll come in later playing catch up. Right now, we have the ones that are the trendsetters. They're getting ahead of it.
Right. And this is the time to jump in. And I would also say that from a market perspective, this is a definite a thumbs up or a boost to the market, because in some areas, inventory is drastically low.
Yeah.
So, if we help the homeowner stay in their home, hopefully, but if they're unable to stay in their home and need to gracefully exit through a short sale, then this is a benefit to the market, because now there are more properties that are on the market. As we mentioned before, they're not REOs, which generally foreclosure is going to have a better house condition than, say, a real estate owned property. And so people can then move right into another home, because again, the market is so tight in certain areas. So I see benefits all along. And Tony, I am again grateful that you have taken this over. Your passion for this particular domain of knowledge, and your passion for teaching, I know, is coming through. It has not waned. And if anybody is interested in becoming certified, again, reach out to CDPE.com. If you're a homeowner that may be having an issue, or you know that you're going to have issues with potentially requalifying again, reach out to Tony at CDPE.com, and he will connect you with someone who has done this and is certified and could help you get to a good end. And anything else that you want to say? We have this last segment here called Giving Us the Boot, which is the and I know this is more residential than it is on the commercial side of things, but I say every now and then we're going to talk about things that are outside of commercial or multifamily. But this segment is, what is it that we can do, if you will, to spur us on to good things? So,
well,
giving us the.
You know what? I'm glad you brought that up, because just before I do that, the foreclosures on the commercial side, that's coming as well. How many businesses closed down? How many places stopped paying rent because they couldn't afford it because there was no business to be had? So we're going to see foreclosures and underwater sales in that arena as well. And that was always the area that people kind of didn't think about. But you absolutely, in the worst hit areas where there was no business and every shop had to close. My primary office is in a retail center, and several of them couldn't open for months.
Wow.
And they couldn't make their payments. Several of them left. So there is opportunity in that area. Here's the thing. What I've always tried to do is let people know that you only achieve success when you step outside your comfort zone. All right. When you are in your comfort zone, man, with like that book, Good to Great. Good is the enemy of great. If you're doing good, it might keep you from doing great because you get comfortable.
Yeah.
People hate public speaking. They'd rather go to the dentist than get in front of an audience, right?
Right.
What you're good at, you're already good at.
Yeah.
Look at the areas that you need to expand. I was talking to one of my agents earlier. I'm having trouble this. I don't have any buyers. I go, cast a wider net. And in fishing, the most fish you can catch at any one time when you cast a line is one.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why they created nets. Cast a wider net.
Yeah.
Because if what you're doing right now, if you're not successful right now, it's either because you're not working or what you're doing isn't working.
There you go.
It's one of the two, right? If you're working hard right now and you're not seeing the results, well, maybe we got to look at how you're doing things, and maybe you just need to tweak it a little bit.
But maybe instead of having a net. Go ahead.
Exactly. This could be the arena that people say, you know what? I need to step outside my comfort zone. And I need to get out there and I need to help some people, because one of the things I've always believed in, it is perfectly acceptable to do well financially by doing good for others.
Absolutely.
And this is an area where, we're making money, but we're helping people and they're eternally grateful and they'll send you leads for life.
That's correct.
Because you were there. And in 2 or 3 years, when their situation gets better, God willing, and they become a boomerang buyer.
Yep.
Who do they come back to?
Come back to the one who helped them.
Absolutely. So right now, look in the mirror, and you're the reason for your success, and you're also the reason why maybe you're not succeeding right now. Look at the areas you've been afraid to get engaged in, and look, I could fall back on a lot of different reasons to not be successful. I didn't have a lot of things going in my favor. People say, well, look at you and everything else. I go, good. I didn't graduate from high school. I wasn't born in this country. I'm not exactly the youngest guy. I'm 60 years old, Jonathan. Who buys a business at 60 years old and decides to go ahead and do this?
Colonel Sanders. There you go, man.
80-something years old and says, I got some chicken. Yes, this is America, man. We can do anything. Let's just take that opportunity. Don't sell yourself short. Now, that is definitely a pun. Don't sell yourself short. Give it all you got and don't give up.
Absolutely. Listen, thanks again, Tony, for coming and sharing this great information. Everybody, again, Tony Martinez, who is now the owner of the Certified Distressed Property Expert for Education. And thanks again, man.